The so-called great men of God, highly esteemed, greatly honored, revealed as almost to the level of God. These so-called men of God exposed as Freemasons. Now, in my attempt to share the light on what is supposed to be obvious, but is not so obvious to so many people, my intention is not to hurt your feelings, but rather to actually show you the truth. Things that you probably saw and ignored or overlooked, something that is very important because these are so called great leaders of the people of God. Now, it's important for us to understand the meaning behind carrying swords. Like, what is up with these African preachers and carrying swords? What's the meaning behind these swords? What is the significance behind it? Okay? Because these pastors, these preachers are well known, well respected, international, and very prominent preachers. So it's important for us to understand why they carry swords. Like, you as an average person, you don't want to understand why these great men carry swords. Like, what is the symbolism? Because as we can see, these swords are filled with symbols. What is the meaning behind these symbols? I mean, wouldn't you want to know? Well, it turns out that the men that you guys hold in such a high regard, the so-called great men of God, the leaders of God's people, are full-fledged Freemasons, ritualists, and occultists. Nevertheless, even after seeing this, some people are actually going to still believe that these men are working for God. Isn't that sad? I mean, wouldn't you want to wake them up? Wouldn't you want to tell them the truth if you knew the truth? And that's what I'm going to do. So let's dive into it. As you can see, I've shown you almost 5 pastors, preachers, carrying these swords. As they ascend in front of the church and bring out these swords, they perform rituals and cast spells on people. This, my friend, is how they make people become so oblivious to the truth, unaware, dumb and numb, spiritually speaking, of course. They have bewitched people, they have casted spells on people with symbolism. People are unable to discern, people can't see beyond the physical, unable to see the spiritual realm. Because why? They have strongholds, they are bound and tied down. And if you have an ounce of doubt and ask a question, how can that be? How's that even possible? You speaking gibberish? Oh well, doesn't Galatians 3:1 say, "All foolish Galatians, who has cast an evil spell on you?" Well, they have cast an evil spell on God's people. We've seen the symbols on those swords. Let's understand symbolism. What is symbolism? Symbolism is simply non-verbal communication, which is way powerful. It's more powerful than you think. If we want to understand why these African pastors carry those swords with those specific symbols, let's understand the minds of whom these pastors actually look up to, those that started the movement. Let's understand their mind. This is Manly Ho, a 33-degree Freemason. Let's see what he has to say about symbols. Then we're going to understand the reason behind those symbols and the reason why these African pastors are actually choosing to reveal and carry and display those symbols in front of people. So he said symbolism is the language of the mysteries. By symbols, men have sought to communicate to each other those thoughts which transcend the limitation of language. Oh, as I've said earlier, symbolism is the non-verbal communication which transcends the limitation of language. You see how strong that is? Now, let's understand the symbols behind these swords. Let us take a look at this guy. Nicholas Duncan Williams. I think that's his name. A very well known African preacher. Very prominent also. And I know some people who actually believe that he's a man of God. But why is he carrying a sword that has that symbol? Let's understand this symbol first and foremost. The symbol that you see on his sword is called a hexagram. Is a six-pointed geometric star figure which is used by these so-called Jews to symbolize David or to symbolize the kingship of David. Now the question is, where did they get that idea? Who told them that the six-pointed geometric star figure is the Star of David? And who gave David that star? That's the question. Is it biblical? Where can we find in the Bible that there is a Star of David? Let the Bible speak. Let the Bible expose them. Don't just take my words for it. Let's see what the Bible has to say. It says, Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Rephaim. Now, in other words, it says, no, you carried your pagan gods, the shrine of Moloch, and the star of your god Rephaim. Now, the star of your god Rephaim is the star of David. That's the star that they carried. That's the star that they represent and claim that it is the Star of David. It is not the Star of David. It's paganism. It's a star of a false god, a star that represents a false god, an idol. That's what that is. And that's what they carry, as you can see here. And you may say, well, there's nothing wrong with carrying swords. They just want to, represent themselves as warriors, men of God. That's what that symbolizes. Well, no. These are rituals, initiations. As you can see, they dress in a certain way, carry certain things. This is Freemasonry for you, my friend. This is what they do. This is where they get the idea. And this ideology is rooted in occultism, witchcraft. It's demonic, it's satanic. Do not follow such a man. Do not ignore the symbolism. Always open your eyes to see these symbols and understand that these symbols have meaning.